Chris Eubank's son Joseph charged with 2 counts of rape of teenage girl. What do you think of that? He's been charged, with 2 counts of rape of a girl who was 17, on Brighton Beach. What's Chris Eubank Sr. got to say about all this? It's not looking good for the Eubank family, is it? This little Joseph Eubank. He's got to appear in court, on the 11th of January, so basically next month. So we'll see how it goes, innit? See how it unfolds. We don't really know much about this guy, do we? This little Joseph Eubank. He's kind of under the radar, innit? He kind of keeps a low profile. He's just not really publicly out there, is he? And it kind of makes you wonder why. Why is he so low key? Why is he so secretive? What's he trying to hide? His Instagram account's private as well. I tried to look him up, on Instagram and try and find out what he's about, but he's private, innit? What's he trying to cover up? It's a bit suspect, innit? So I don't know, it kind of suggests that he's got something to hide, don't it? And that's what they say though, innit? It's always the quiet ones, that are a bit dodgy, and it kind of appears to be the case here, with this little quiet son of Chris Eubank Sr. Yeah, he might just be low-key and this and that, but you have to ask yourself, is he really? Or is he just raping women on Brighton Beach, and he just don't want his face to be seen, in public, where he can be identified as a rapist? Because like now, now that he's charged with 2 counts of rape, people are going to start having a go at him in the streets, aren't they? Even though he tried to keep himself private and low-key and off the radar, like having a dad like Chris Eubank Sr., he's bound to come into the public eye. He's kind of been exposed, for raping a woman on Brighton Beach. But yeah, this little Joseph Eubank, I used to watch him on At Home with the Eubanks, that little documentary. I've got it on DVD. I used to watch it back in the day, and I used to see that little Joseph Eubank. And even back then, even though he was a kid, I kind of thought this guy's a bit dodgy, Someone needs to keep an eye on him, when he grows up. The way he was acting in the fucking documentary, even though he was only a kid, he was kind of acting suspect, back then. Can't put my finger on what it was, but there was definitely something suspect there with him. And it's kind of coming to fruition now, isn't it? Him raping women on Brighton Beach. But yeah, like I say, we don't really know too much about him, do we? I tried to dig up some dirt on him, but there's just not much there. This little trial that he's got coming up, on the 11th of January, next month, it should reveal a bit more about him. And we'll find out more about the rape on Brighton Beach. But yeah, that Eubank family, they're a bit fucked up, aren't they? The dad, Eubank Sr., he crashed into this builder, and killed him. But he didn't really get locked up for it, He got like 6 points. And he got fined about £1,000 because he tried to say to the judge, yeah, the road was a bit slippery. And I skidded off the road, and fucking crashed into the builder, and killed him by accident. And the fucking judge fell for it, man, and just let him off, and just give him a few little points and a little fine. After he fucking murdered a builder. Because he tried to make out like he didn't do it deliberately. But you don't know what's true with these guys, do you? You remember when Chris Eubank Sr. was wagging his black finger at those ring card girls? Trying to act all pure. Trying to act like, yeah, I'm not into that kind of thing, get away. I'm not into that kind of thing, neither is my son, so go away. We're not like that, go away. Because we're pure, trying to act like you don't like pussy, Chris Eubank Sr. Trying to act like he's above it, trying to act like he's all pure and innocent. You remember when he used to wear that sheriff's badge, trying to act like he's above it, like he's fucking high up. You remember that little badge that he used to wear? And this Chris Eubank Sr., yeah, he banned Coogan, from interviewing him and his son. Because he said that Coogan uses bad language, in his interviews. So he banned Coogan from interviewing him and his son. But then, as time went by, Coogan, he started to build up his channel, and he started to get more subscribers. And so as Coogan started to build up, Eubank Sr., he started trying to, get back in there with Coogan, because he wanted to get that publicity, you know, and he wanted to promote his son's fights, you know, and just fucking build up his profile, you know, and get that publicity so he can sell more pay-per-views, you know, so he can cash in. And Coogan just like started interviewing him again, you know, even though he banned Coogan previously, you know, from interviewing him. So then Coogan was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll interview you, yeah, I'll give you some publicity, you know, after Eubank fucked him off. You know, as opposed to just saying, you know what, fuck off, man. You said I couldn't interview you back in the day, yeah. Now I've become a bit of a somebody and you want to jump on my channel, you know, and promote your fucking son's pay-per-views and get publicity. No, I'm not having it, fuck off. That's what Coogan should have said, you know what I mean? But he didn't, did he? You know, people just walk all over him and he don't do anything about it, does he? You know, Coogan, he ain't really got a spine, has he? He ain't really got a backbone. It's like he don't really stand for anything. He just, you know, floats in the wind, you know, like a little leaf. You know, sitting on the fence and that, just fucking clueless. But yeah, this Chris Eubank Sr. is a bit stuck up in it. You know, saying to Coogan that he can't interview him and that, you know what I mean? And now he's wagging his black finger at these ring card girls, you know, saying get away. You know, we're not perverts, you know, go away. But he loves pussy, man. Look how many kids he's got. He's had a few divorces, etc. So he loves pussy, man. He knows he wants to fuck her. And like, he called him a slag as well. Did you see him like say that? You can kind of lip read what he said in it. He kind of like called him a slag. You know, showing that kind of disrespect. So, you know, this guy, Chris Eubank Sr., I remember when Brendan Ingle called him a phony.
He's a phony.
Kind of true, innit? But you remember that video where Chris Eubank Sr. jumped over the ropes, you know, and then he started like strutting around, you know, and posing and fucking, you know, and knocked that guy out with a big right hand. You know, posing like that after knocking somebody out with a big right hand. Acting like that, and like Nassim Hamed was in the crowd, you know, and he was like a 16-year-old. And he was staring at Chris Eubank Sr., you know, in awe. He was really impressed, wasn't he, Nas, you know, just staring at Chris Eubank Sr., you know, posing like that after knocking somebody out with a big right hand. And this was like a young Nas, you know, who was about 16, you know, who wasn't a pro at that point. And you could tell that he was like really impressed, you know, by Chris Eubank Sr.'s fucking posing and strutting around the ring, you know, and fucking knocking somebody out, you know, and jumping over the ropes and all that. So, I don't know, I'm not sure if Eubank Sr. is a phony, you know, in that sense. He might have been the originator, you know, of all that posing and just fucking strutting around the ring. So I'm not sure if he's a phony, you know, in that regards. It's hard to say, innit? I don't know if Nas was doing that, you know, when he was an amateur at 16 years old, but he was definitely impressed, you know, by Chris Eubank Sr. But he's definitely got a lot of faults, hasn't he, Chris Eubank Sr. Like, you remember when he fucked off his little black illegitimate son, Nathaniel Wilson, you know, that he abandoned? You remember when they met up, you know, after years and years of them being estranged? You know, they met up, you know, at a Chris Eubank Jr. workout. And it was really tense. It was a really negative, hostile environment, wasn't it? You know, he could barely look Chris Eubank Sr. in the eye. You know, his biological dad. And like Chris Eubank Sr. tried to put his hand on his shoulder, you know, to like try and embrace him. But he wasn't having any of it, was he? It was a bit of a hostile environment, wasn't it? You could tell. And like, you know, when Chris Eubank Sr. realised that the little illegitimate son of his was just having none of it. And it was a bit tense, you know, he started to like turn away, you know, and focus his attention on Chris Eubank Jr., you know, who he's been there for since birth. So yeah, this Chris Eubank Sr. guy is not as innocent as he tries to make out. Years ago, he did a documentary, you know, with that Louis Theroux, who's just interviewed that Joshua. He asked Chris Eubank Sr. if he drinks alcohol. Chris Eubank Sr. was like, no, I don't drink alcohol. No, I don't. It's bad for you. It's like poison. No, I don't drink it. I don't drink it at all. I don't drink alcohol. So then that Louis Theroux said to Chris Eubank Sr., we paid your hotel bill last night and you ordered a lot of alcohol to your room. So what's all that about? And Chris Eubank Sr. tried to like wiggle out of it by saying, no, I didn't. It's not me. I don't drink. It's not me. But He might have had a woman in his hotel room, you know, and he might have just ordered the alcohol for her, but, you know, even that, you know, like getting a woman into his hotel room and just filling her full of alcohol, you know, so he can fucking exploit her, you know, and take advantage of her. You know, like his son Joseph Eubank did to that woman on Brighton Beach. So it's a bit of a common theme, innit? You know, amongst the Eubanks. And then the dad, Chris Eubank Sr., you know, like rubbing his lips like that, you know, with Vaseline. You remember when he was doing that? It was a bit creepy, wasn't it? A bit zesty. Yeah, I don't know, he was kind of making a fool of himself, wasn't he? I don't know if that's why Chris Eubank Jr. fucked him off. You know what I mean? Because they used to work together, didn't they? But they've had a bit of a fallout, and that might be why. You know, Eubank Jr., he might have been ashamed, you know, of his dad's zesty behaviour. You know what I mean? He was kind of making a fool of the family name on it, Eubank Senior, you know, with the Vaseline. But like I say, those two used to work together, innit? So I think Eubank Jr. fucked him off, you know, because of that. You remember when he was in his corner, like, posing? You know, he was trying to put on a show on it, you know, Chris Eubank Senior, you know, posing like that. You know, and he was like secretly glad, you know, that his son put Nick Blackwell in a coma. But he was trying to make out like he wasn't, you know what I mean? Like in an interview after the fight, he said, yeah, I told my son Chris Eubank Jr. to go to the body because I knew he was fucked up Nick Blackwell, and I knew that any more head punches, he would probably end up in a coma. So I just told my son Eubank Jr. to go to the body. You know, that's bullshit, innit? You know, he wanted his son Eubank Jr. to mess up Nick Blackwell. And he was probably secretly happy, you know, that Nick Blackwell ended up like that, you know, because he knew it would get a lot of publicity. He knew it would boost Chris Eubank's profile. So, you know, in the future, you know, he'd get more sort of pay-per-view buys. You know, so his dad can get a fucking chunk of his cash because he was like managing him on it and advising him. But, you know, when this Chris Eubank Jr. started to grow up and he started to make more money, he kind of thought, you know what, I'm not giving my dad any more money, and he kind of fucked him off. So the dad, Chris Eubank Sr., who went bankrupt, he started trying to hang around his nephew, Harlem Eubank, you know, trying to get money out of him, you know, trying to hype up a fight with him and Conor Ben, you know, so he can get a payday out of his nephew, Harlem Eubank. But this Conor Ben, he was having none of it. He was saying, nah, this Harlem Eubank's a nobody. He's got nothing to offer. All he's got is the name, you know, I'm not fighting him, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? And Eddie Hearn, he said that as well. So, you know, Chris Eubank Sr. trying to hype that fight up, you know, so he can get a little percentage off his nephew, Harlem Eubank. You know, it's not working, man. Conor Ben and Eddie Hearn, they're not having any of it, are they? But yeah, this little guy here, this little Joseph Eubank, this little rapist, you know, we'll find out, you know, when he goes to court next month. But, you know, in this day and age, you get these fucking women, you know, accusing men of all kinds of shit. You know, trying to get a payday. I think Andrew Tate kind of went through that, didn't he? You know, I don't know what's going on with him, but, you know, the woman who accused him of raping her, she has got history, you know, of accusing men of raping her. And every case has, like, fell through. You know what I mean? And all the men that she's accused are men who have got the bag, you know, have got that money. So she deliberately targeted Andrew Tate, you know, to try and get money out of him. So some women, you don't know, do you? Some of them just lie and pretend, you know, so they can get a nice payday. You know, P. Diddy's going through that, innit? You know, some woman's recently come out and said that he sexually assaulted her, you know, and he paid her off. You know, and you can say, well, he paid her off, so that's admission of guilt, but it's not. You know, if he had to go through the whole legal process and hire a load of lawyers and a big legal team, you know, it would have cost him more in the long run, you know, by doing that. You know, as opposed to giving the woman a few little quid. So, you know, paying somebody off, it's not necessarily an admission of guilt. It can just save the person money, you know, in the long run. And like the stress of having to go to court and testify and this and that. But like, you know, if that woman really did get raped, you know, by P. Diddy, surely she would want some kind of justice to prevail. But, you know, him just paying her a few little quid, you know, it's nothing to P. Diddy. You know, he's got some serious cash. It's nothing, man. You know, he was managing Biggie, wasn't he? You know, and a load of other rappers. You know, he's got his little vodka drink out, Ciroc, so he's got fucking money, man. But yeah, you know, this little rapist here, we don't really know too much about him, do we? You know, he's tried to like conveniently operate, you know, under the radar to avoid detection, but he's kind of been exposed, hasn't he? So, you know, hopefully we'll find out a bit more about him, you know, at his trial. But you know, the fact that the police have charged him, you know, it suggests a bit of foul play, don't it? It suggests that they've got a bit of evidence. Like, you know, when I got arrested for talking about Coogan's daughter, you know, the police, yeah, they came round, seized all my electronic devices, you know, and took them away and examined them, you know, and then they came back a few weeks later, you know, and gave me all my devices back and said, we're taking no further action. Do you know what I mean? But you know, the fact that this guy's been charged, you know, it suggests that they've got a bit of evidence, you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting, you know, to see how the trial goes. But I'm going to wrap this up anyway. Thanks for tuning in again, yeah? Thanks for that.